Welcome, IT changemakers, to the DEX Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Hello, changemakers. And what a week of change it's been, not just for Nexthinkers, but for the whole digital employee experience industry. I'm Tom McGraw, joined as ever by Tim Flower. How you doing today, Tim?
I'm good, Tom. Just back from a little bit of a trip. Was out on the road for 4 weeks. Multiple experience events, a quick little PTO overseas, trip out to California. But feeling good today in light of some changes we can talk about.
Why don't we, in case somebody's tuning into the show and hasn't seen the buzz on social media or the industry news, why don't you lay it out, Tim? What has taken place this week that's so momentous for the organization we work for and for the wider industry?
Yeah, I put something out on LinkedIn too. So it's interesting timing for me, having just hit a birthday with a 0 in it. Crept up on me, but it happens to all of us. But also on Sunday was my official 10-year anniversary. October 26th was my 10-year anniversary at the company.
This was it, Tim. I was talking about... No, I'm joking. I know you. I know you're
Well,
going around
line up
saying-
very coincidentally that on Monday,
Yes.
we announced a majority stake investment in Nexthink. And I think it's, we're now valued at a $3 billion company. We still have our sights on a public position down the road, but this sets us up to be even more invested in innovation, in technology, in growth of our business. It shows the faith and interest in this market and seeing it grow. So I think it's a huge sign for what's to come for us.
That's really well put. And, look, Tim, you got the birthday with a 0 on it relatively recently. You've got your 10-year anniversary. We've got the news of this new valuation, this new investor for Nexthink. And then as if that isn't enough anniversaries, we are basically slap bang on the 200th anniversary of the DEX Show. Can you believe it? Sorry, 200 episodes.
Years?
The 200-year-old podcast. Not yet. Not yet, everybody.
Longer than some democracies out there, Tim. Wow.
Yes, if we were to equate it in that way, an episode per year.
200 episodes.
200 crazy, right? And we're gonna be celebrating everybody. It kind of crept up on us too, I should stress, and we're gonna be celebrating it next week. Hopefully a very special guest is in the pipeline for next week, and even if it falls through, we'll do something. We'll have a little episode party, so do tune in for that. But you just heard in the background, Chip in there, our special guest today. Regular listeners to this show will know him only too well as a regular Reality Bytes valued was a panelist, and he's a senior editor and content manager and editor-in-chief at the beloved DEX Hub, Sean Malvey. How you doing, Sean? Welcome to the other version of the DEX Show once again.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. I would like to be referred to as senior panelist from now on as well.
Senior panelist, quite so. I think you've probably been on like 50, 60 episodes of the DEX Show yourself, Sean.
A good slice of the pie, I believe so.
Yes, you're a vet here. And we're here to talk about a report you recently wrote and you've recently written and helped spearhead along with David Edelman from our team who couldn't be with us today to discuss it because he's so busy helping with the comms around all of this Nexthink investment news. So you're flying solo to talk about this research report, which is cracking the DEX equation, the first annual workplace productivity report. It is a big deal. We do a lot of fantastic studies and research, and we cover a lot of them here on the DEX Show. But I kind of feel, Sean, if you tell me if you disagree, that this might be the most significant research project you've ever been a part of. We've been a part of as a team before.
Yeah, I think so. And definitely shout out to David for all the work he did behind this. I know he's not here right now, but he helped a lot with this project. The difference with this report, so first off, anyone who wants to download it, just go to our website, nexthink.com/resources. You'll find it
Just
there,
go to the show notes.
or the show notes as
Go
well.
right there.
And so we've done surveys in the past. Obviously, there's two types of data reports. One are surveys, like external surveys, where we go to IT professionals and sometimes employees to get their opinions and feedback about their workplace and their issues. And then the other type of survey we've done only a few times in the past is looking at our own anonymized data sets, usually just for like specific niche topics like Windows 11 we've done in the past, and things that impact startup, boot time, what variables might impact that. And this round, we decided to take a much bigger cut. Now, we didn't grab all 25 million endpoints that we work with for our customers, but we have a pretty large subset of 9 million endpoints where we looked at our own data and tried to really trace and articulate the relationship between one's DEX score, or the digital employee experience, what's felt, and productivity gains or losses. Um, and I won't jump in too far ahead, but basically we've seen this over the years with our customers at a customer level, how they've been able to kind of trace this relationship and see reap the benefits from understanding it. But we wanted to kind of take a bigger cut of the data across the market and see what we could find.
Well, let's take it further, because this kind of drills into the question of, as the report's called, Sean, the DEX equation. And what I guess we're asserting here, and we have the data to make this assertion, is that we've cracked it. We've cracked that DEX equation. You alluded to it just then. We've put hard numbers next to the kind of productivity gains that DEX can facilitate, can create. So tell us what the main findings were and why it matters.
Sure. Yeah. And definitely to underline this, this is our best guess estimate that we can from our data, and it's only going to get better. We're hoping to do another report next year and individual reports throughout the quarter. So if anybody does have like research topics that they would like to see, you can also contact us and submit those queries. But we're essentially able to figure out like the estimated time loss caused by a poor digital employee experience, and conversely a positive one. So one of the biggest stats that we were able to kind of extrapolate is that the average enterprise of, say, 13,500 employees loses about 470,000 hours a year due to poor digital employee experience. Now, that might be very shocking as a headline. We also view this as a number that a lot of people didn't even know existed prior to working with us. So these are tickets and issues that would have gone under the radar if it wasn't for our software. And actually, when we looked at a separate survey earlier this year, when we spoke to IT leaders, it was about 1,000 of them that responded that what they believe their organizations lose per year to poor DEX is around 198,000 hours, or just under 200,000 hours, excuse me. So there's they've obviously underrated that estimate massively. So that's one thing to look at that figure. It's also to kind of identify issues that many of which can be automated away. There's certain remediations that our software can deal with. There's also stuff that has nothing to do with the technology that I think Tim will get into later that can impact that time loss. But I'll stop for now because there's some other good points that we can get to.
So, Sean, I'm sure you know, and folks know, I've done a ton of work here on ROI, and it can be very complicated when you look at IT savings versus business savings and avoiding issues. The report shows, and this is one of the benefits of the DEX score, but the report shows a 10-point increase in a DEX score can recover 22 minutes of productivity per employee per week. So how should employees interpret that in terms of ROI? Is it hard savings? Is it soft savings? Is it an employee benefit, a company benefit, an IT benefit? Talk a bit about the increase in the DEX score and its linkage to ROI.
Sure. And short answer, a little bit of everything. What that means is you're recovering like software asset management costs, hardware costs, reallocating end user support headcount. But we have specific examples. So when we looked at that estimate, we said, all right, that's a pretty good figure. I'm certain there's a more conservative estimate that can be done, though. And just luckily, in parallel with us, if you go to the Nexthink experience site in the replay section, we have a great customer talk from BDO, which is a advisory firm out of the UK, that has done this exact thing that we've done, but with a more conservative estimate. They found out that if you increase the DEX score by 1 point, you can recover about 5 minutes of productivity. Now, what does this all mean in individual customers and industries? Those numbers have different impact depending on where you are. So for this particular customer, BDO, they found that by tracking the DEX score and making improvements and watching it improve by the number of productivity recovered, they were able to actually gain back an estimate of 300,000 pounds just in value from after 1 year of doing all this work and kind of tracking the score. So that's just one example, but we had I believe it was a study a couple of years ago by the Forrester. They did a total economic impact study on Nexthink customers across the board, and they found that there was almost a 300% ROI within the first 3 years. And now this is a bit old. This is a couple of years ago, so we have some new, fresh products that have been in play for just the past 2-3 years. So I'm sure we'll do studies like that in the future to keep looking at it, but that should give listeners a sense of the type of ROI they can expect.
And like I said, ROI has always been a bit of an art as well as a science, determining what the formula is, trusting the data, trusting the calculation, and elevating the conversation, I think is a good point to make there. But the analysis also shows, and this we've gotten kind of a bit accustomed to this at Nexthink over the past few years with Infinity, but with 25 million endpoints in the cloud, I know we didn't use them all for this. We wanted to kind of pull our most mature customers. But the analysis shows workplace productivity loss by industry. So, as a customer myself, as an IT, enterprise IT guy, we were always pushed to be top quartile. Our CTO, our CFO wanted our operation to be in the top quartile for our market segment. And the question always was, well, how do you know? How do you know when you got there? How do you know you're measuring the same things that the analysts come in and tell you will get you to the top quartile? How long does it take? What do you do after you get there? There's lots of conversation you could have about getting to that. But some of the industries reported more loss than others. So walk us through the data and what it means for IT leaders in terms of comparison across industries.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the most interesting parts of the report. So first off, stepping back from time loss, even across all industries, we found it was pretty much the same, where the average employee would face up to 14 technology disruptions per week,
Mm.
regardless of your industry. But when you get into the actual time loss of those individual events, it does vary greatly. So digital workers, like in retail, healthcare, and financial services, suffer delays about 1.7 times longer than their peers in the tech industry. So if you're working in the tech industry, you're doing pretty good compared to other industries, which I think is that makes sense. I'm hoping if we do this again, which we will next year, but I want to dive more into the things that are impacting those top three industries, for example, with retail, healthcare, and financial services, and how they stack up year over year. I can take a wild guess. You can probably articulate it better, Tim, but my guess is, in healthcare and financial services, you probably have more custom applications and stuff that's built in-house that could be impacting time loss, whereas, other stuff that's sold on the commercial market, it might be a little bit easier to get tech support and troubleshoot and things like that. But that was really eye-opening to see the discrepancy between the different industries.
The other thing I think that would be interesting to look at, but more difficult to assess is, and I think we'll talk about it here in a bit, but the maturity of those industries. So the tech industry obviously has more technical people in their company to be able to find and fix things more quickly. Whereas in healthcare, some of the evidence tells us that a medical professional, a nurse, a doctor, a practitioner will just push a Windows on wheels machine into the corner. I've heard stories about them pushing it into the elevator and hitting floor 7 just to get the device off their floor.
Yeah,
So those kinds of frustrations, those kinds of delays are inherent in the response to issues and not just the issue itself. So I think there's a lot to be explored there.
for sure.
I mean, Tim, you've actually a couple of questions for you to round us off. Maybe you've obviously worked closely with organizations at different stages in their DEX ops maturity. Um, what is the significance, and what does it tell us about that level of maturity for an IT department that is able to correlate productivity, wins or losses with the DEX score or with their DEX investment?
I think the ugly truth in IT and business in general is that IT leaders frequently focus on the losses because they're more visible, right? Yeah, or they're focusing on the fear of loss. There's a lot of pressure in IT to make that next change, to make that next deployment without impacting employees. So there's this focus and fear of failure or of loss. It's why we have end of quarter and end of year moratoriums. The change moratorium is there because the business is so confident that you're going to break them, they don't allow you to change anything. So there's a lot of focus on failure. Wins are celebrated very quickly, but just in the context of thank God that didn't fail, right? We pushed out the patch, we pushed out the upgrade, we only got 3% tickets. Let's move on to the next one. But the score and the ability to see where you are in your maturity journey elevates that conversation, even in failure. So, for example, you can take a look at that score and communicate your improvements over time. We went from a 6.9 to a 7.3 over the course of a month, and here are the specific things we did to improve that. Or those big changes where there's a fear of failure, you can show the massive amount of change you made with no breakage, and our score stayed flat. We didn't impact anybody. We didn't degrade. So you've got a different conversation with the business. You've got a different focus in IT, and each of the stages of maturity, whether it's getting better at reactive or proactive or preventative or strategic, you've got different things to plan and to celebrate along those milestones.
That's interesting. And I think anybody listening to the shows and some of the podcasts we've been making will know that DEX Ops has been something, that's hotly discussed at the moment among sort of Nexthink customers and DEX influencers. Maybe you could just epitomize, however, what exactly DEX Ops maturity specifically means
Mm.
and how Nexthink is able to approach different customers at different stages with an emphasis on what it's able to do with and for customers who have already developed quite far.
I like to look at that maturity on a very basic human level, right? Go from a human maturity. You start out as a child, as a toddler. You learn to walk, you learn to talk, you learn to run, you learn to ride a bike. All of those things you learn at the very early stages of your maturity are fundamental for building the next level. As a teenager or as a young adult, you're in college, you're learning, you're planning your profession, you're putting a career plan together, you're getting a degree, and then middle of your career, you're planning your next move, you're building a family, and then later stage, planning the retirement and enjoying the rest of your life. So if you look at the maturity in DEX and in DEX Ops, it's very similar. Everyone's on a different journey, and everyone's at a different place on that journey. Ticket reduction may be a win for some people, but it could be ancient history for others. We tackled that years ago. We're stable, we're solid. What's the next thing we're going to do in our maturity to become a strategic partner with the business? The customer success plan and an internal roadmap help identify what the next win will be, and not just by chance, but plan the wins by design. It's not just as they occur. So designing your next win, for example, we're going to gather employee sentiment and then map that into our next transformation, make sure we're accommodating what the business needs, fix the problem of what IT is typically criticized for in that they don't understand the business. So plan and include the celebration and the communications around those wins, just to kind of lay out that maturity model again. Reactive is fixing things faster. Things are going to break, and they may not even be in your control. And it's not just technology fixes; it's adoption fixes and process fixes. Proactive is finding those issues without tickets. find the process bottlenecks, find the failures, don't rely on employees to call you. The next level of maturity, and a lot of people get proactive and preventative confused. They'll say, well, if you're breaking things and fixing them, you're really not proactive. Well, you are, because you're breaking your dependency on employees having to tell you about it. You're proactively fixing things that are broken. Preventative is knowing that something will break and not breaking it in advance, or finding it early in a pilot stage and stopping your rollout until you can come up with a remediation and a workaround and prevent issues from spreading. And it's not just those kind of phases, it's the operational rigor that goes along with those that's important. How do I collaborate across my teams? How do I spur innovation? How do I go find new problems to solve, just versus just going and finding things that are broken, and bringing new AI, and especially with automation and coupled with AI today? How do I find those age-old problems that I can now not just remediate, but improve and automate and bring to the business to solidify my strategic position with them. So DEX Hub maturity is different for everybody because of our age, our position, how long we've been at it. But I love the maturity model because it gives a very defined stage of how you move up the ladder.
But I was concerned, Tim, to hear you miss so many important milestones, the first fist fight, you know, the appearance in Oliver Twist,
Yeah.
where it was.
I think we covered those at Experience a
For
bit.
anyone who wants to hear more about those milestones, do listen to our, I think, last published episode, recorded live at Experience Boston.
Yeah.
It was good fun. And there's some really good closing reflections there. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Sean, so much, not just for coming on the show, but for spearheading along with David Edelman this amazing report. Last time, Sean, give us a plug for people can download it. Anything else you want them to do? They can reach out, as you mentioned, about future topics. How would they do that?
Yeah, please do. You can actually just go to contact us button anywhere on the website. And when you submit your query, just reference a report. If you have a research topic, an idea, submit it. We'll get back to you. We definitely want to go after interesting questions that we think are interesting on our side. But of course, we're open to feedback from other people outside of Nexthink. So please do so.
Thank you so much, Sean. And look, just before we sign off, everybody out there listening who's part of the Nexthink community, not only a Nexthinker, but a customer, a partner, an analyst perhaps who supported Nexthink and helped get the word out there in terms of
Shout out to Dan at Gartner.
Shout out to Dan at Gartner, people who have been behind DEX for so many years, making a difference to it. Congratulations. I think this is a huge week for everybody, and reflective of the incredible strength of the culture that's been built around DEX and that we've all of us built together. Tim, isn't that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and another shout out to, and I'm sure you get it too, Tom. When we were at Experience, the number of people is growing that come up to you and say, "Hey, just wanted to talk. I love the podcast. Love talking to you individually." So shout out to everybody who came up and said hi.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's so nice to meet listeners and hear that people enjoy the show. We deeply appreciate that.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. Good shout out, Tim. Shout out to everybody who did that. And we'll see you all soon. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Sean. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how Nexthink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nexthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.